Hello, hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of. I was going to talk about another show, but the DevRel show with Fred. I was going to say welcome to another episode of Backstage with Fred, which is a show I do. I do at Tiny MC when I'm on the road. No, it's a DevRel show. It's the right one. So really happy to be here. Always excited to do the DevRel show. It's one of my baby, and actually episode 49, if I'm not wrong, today, which means that like the next one is going to be episode 50, which is some kind of like milestone. I mean, like, half 100. So it's going that direction. I'm nowhere near to stop that show. I mean, I will continue to do that as long as I have guests, because as I always say, that show, obviously there is my name and kind of like my face on it, because that's kind of my show. But like, you could remove me from that show. It's all about the guests. They're the one making the show. So as long as I have guests, I don't know how I'm not able to speak in English, but as long as I have guests on my show, that show will continue. And let me tell you, my friends, so far so good. I think I have guests, and I'm not even lying here, for the next 2 years in the wait list. So it's a good problem to have. It's really sad though for people that want to join the show, because I'm like, yeah, can you wait like about 2 years before coming in the show? And hopefully you're still going to do that job while that's going to be your turn. But anyway, I'm blabbering now again. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just happy. Like, it's finally summer in Canada. We really had bad weather until recently. Yesterday we started to have like summer weather, and whether you like it or not, weather affects your mood. And now my mood is just more, I don't know, peppy. I don't know, it's summertime. Anyway, super happy to be here. I have an amazing guest today, Niall. How is life?
Practically perfect in every way. And you can't tell me any different. I feel that if you don't wake up in the morning and believe in that, then it can only go, it can only get worse. Because my day can definitely get worse from there, but it's still pretty good by that stage if you're already starting at quite a high point. So that's my usual rule of thumb.
I like that. And you tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm really bad with with names. Like, I don't think we never met in person, but we're connected on LinkedIn since probably forever. So it's basically the first time we're interacting together. And what I do with my guests is that's usually to join 15 minutes before the show, so I can just give them like a little bit like, hey, let me tell you what I sent you by email, but like just to be sure you remember like how the show's going to go. No real prep, but just like, hey, this is how we're going to do. First part is discussion, second part is the demo, and just testing like everything is working well. And so I basically, quote unquote, know you for like 10 minutes, and I just love the energy. And like, just based on your answer, the positive approach that you've done, because I want to go into religion or philosophy, but like, I'm Buddhist. I follow the Tibetan Buddhist philosophy, which is like basically the premise is like life is suffering, which seems super negative when you think about it, but that's a little bit true, which doesn't mean that like I'm someone negative or someone that's seeing like life is shit. I just know that like there's always something happening. But as you said, if you have a positive attitude, yeah, things can go down, but like if you start on a high note and you try to keep positive, I think it's great. So I just wanted to, highlight the fact that I just love that approach. It's so much more fun too. It's like it hypes the vibe too when the other person are positive, instead of like if I ask you like, how are you, how is life? It's like, yeah, it's not going well. It's raining outside. We don't know about our job is going to be secure and whatever. Oh, yeah.
And don't forget as well, not only am I practically perfect in every way, it's also 6 p.m. my time. So I've been doing pretty well all day. So this is not only a starting point. This is where I'm essentially like grounding my day to. No, I had a very lovely day today. And I fully expect this to be a wonderful hour of your time, of course, and anyone watching. But because we got a really fun stuff that I really want to talk to you about, because I think one of the things that I was quite looking forward to chatting to you about is DevRel stuff in general. This is the DevRel show after all. And because I am in a really small team of myself and a few other folk, but no one else would consider themselves like in DevRel, right? So I have a bunch of interesting discussions, I think, lined up for you about just the concept of how you feel about DevRel in general. We've both been in the industry for the same kind of amount of time, maybe a little longer than me. And then we can maybe start talking about sort of how the dynamic has shifted over the last little while. Because I'm interested in your opinion as well, of course, about if
Love it.
we all live in little bubbles of DevRel in some cases, and you wonder, like, is this how the whole industry is, or is it just what's going on in like the connections that I have? So I'm quite looking forward to chatting about that.
I really love that. Great ideas. I love when the guests come and like, hey, this is what I want to talk about. But like before we even jump into that, 2 questions for you. One, what are you drinking? And the second question is like, who are you? Like tell like people that do not know you, like who are you?
I like how you prioritize those questions, and you were right to prioritize what I'm drinking first. I live in Berlin, and I am drinking an IPA from Berlo, which is a relatively nice local brewery. Not a small brewery, but a local brewery. I wouldn't say it's the best craft beer in Berlin, but it's the one I have, and it's quite nice. I suggest if you like the kind of beer, you should give it a try. And who I am, which is again less relevant, but still important. Who's drinking the beer is the question people are going to ask. So I'm Niall. So I work for Camunda doing developer advocate stuff. I've been doing it for a long time. I've been with Camunda for the last 11 years or so, doing various things. And I think just like most folks tend to fell into DevRel kind of not by looking at the what people do, but doing it and then being told that's what it is, that's what you've been doing. And that happened quite a while ago. So I've been doing DevRel stuff for about 8 years maybe. And before that, I was a software developer. And then like, I think like the early, this is my perception, like the early sort of DevRel folks, if you were a developer, a software developer, and you could talk and explain the technical aspects of what you were building really well, you ended up sort of being the first cohorts into what became DevRel, right? So that in that universe, DevRel was trying to solve for a relatively small problem, which was we want our product team to be properly represented outside of the company in a way in which we can kind of skip around other departments. Now, how do we do that? We send a developer who likes talking to a conference or something, or to a meetup group, where they talk to their peers, and free of like the trappings of talking points and pre-approved slides, right? You show code, and you can have really honest conversations. And honestly, I was really drawn to DevRel easily for that. Loved talking honestly to developers who use the software we were building, and having a lot of honesty around that. It was a fantastic time. One of the things that kind of like disillusions me to DevRel these days is that that's a really rare one, right? I'm not sure that really exists so much anymore. A developer who actually is owned by the product team, who is sent to speak honestly about the software not to users, clients, potential customers, but other developers, their peers. And I think that's a big movement that DevRel has had in the last 10 years that has really made me feel like while I've stayed in this one lane, this whole big thing has happened in the meantime that has just reshaped it to the point where if someone like asks me, oh, what do you do? I avoid saying DevRel. I will not. Okay. It depends on the context. Who are they? If they're a software developer who I'm interested in having a discussion about the nitty-gritty of software, saying I'm DevRel, I have found recently, and when I say recently, I mean the last maybe 4 years, so it's a while, right? I have found the reaction is, oh, so you're marketing, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And so what kind of impression, Fred, do you have out of interest around that same idea? What do you think, first of all, about, did the growth cycle I talked about resonate with you at all?
I have so many things to say about everything you said. Wow, I don't know where to start. So the first thing, I've seen that change a little bit also in the role where like initially there was like, hey, with all respect for traditional marketing, that was not the way to approach, developer. With all respect from the sales team, like developers are allergic to sales, and we were like, hey, we need like developers to talk to developers. But as you said, also remove from the like, I don't know, let's call them shackles of like the company, or like, hey, you need to do it that way, and you need to sell it with those words, and you need to use those terms, so like it's going to make sense for the business. And it was like, no, let's just be honest. So sorry for the word, but like, since I do that job, my motto was always no bullshit. First, because like I'm not that kind of person. Secondly, because I don't think I can be successful in my role if I'm trying to line or talk about things that do not make sense for a developer, do not resonate with them. I think it was a lot more exactly what you said at first. I think it depends on the company and or the people doing the job. So it changed, obviously, like as a general rule, like as you said, like I feel the role changed a little bit. And again, it can be so different from one company to the other. I think it's the first time I'm going to say this, but I think I'm really proud of like me keeping my ground on that. Like, no, this is how I see the role. This is how I think the role is effective. This is how I think it can benefit the company if I do it in my own terms, with my own vision of DevRel, which is exactly what you talked about. We started with that, where it was like developer talking to developers. I'm not part of engineering's or most of the jobs I had, I was not part of product. But because I always came with the approach of like, no, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna be a salesperson. If I do my job well, like hopefully maybe developers will use our product, or to become users, to become paid users or customers. But like that, my goal is to help developer being successful. And again, hopefully, don't get me wrong, I like to have a paycheck. So hopefully they're gonna be successful with my product. But if my product is not right for them, it's fine. If another product is also good to a competitor, I'm not gonna lie about that. I may not go on the rooftop and say like, hey, use that other product, like they're better with that specific functionality. But if we have a discussion with someone, like I'm going to be really honest about it.
Yeah, I'll tell you why that's something that really concerns me. So here's the thing about DevRel is not part of product, right? And I've experienced this where the DevRel department shifts around, and the shift from product to marketing made very little difference, I think, on the day-to-day of the people working, right? But it had a profound impact on the perceived value of the team, because when you're in product, right, the goal is very much, well, depends, company by company. Again, I can only speak my own experience, which is what I will do. The goal tends to be you are in a department, a very technical department with a lot of technical people who are both interested in the feedback from the developers, which is the ideal scenario. A DevRel person should, of course, be a voice of the end user, the developer user inside the product, and also be able to get that information that the devs just kind of said, hey, this is the way we see the stuff we're writing being used here's the best way to do it, and go and like make sure that folks understand that, because it's not always very obvious for whatever reason, right? So this made it a really, really nice two-way street, okay? Because you really do end up with this embedding, and everyone kind of works quite well with that. A key thing that's not there is any allusion to a dissemination of marketing talking points, or more importantly, a requirement to link the work you do to specific financial outcome, which I think is, no matter where you put DevRel, is impossible. So when you put into that department identically into a marketing department, for example, and again, I can only speak to my experience, you then need to reevaluate what you are bringing to that department, because now you are being paid by the budget associated with promoting the company positively to the people who will pay for it. Because as lovely as marketing is, they have no interest in telling someone who has no money how great the product is, because they are, what value does that have? And when I say what value, what immediate value does that have? There's no sort of long train on that. So then you find the activities you do, the things you're judged on, end up being quite tainted by this creeping pattern of judgment based on growth and projections that the marketing department also believe in. So, which makes everything you do less sincere. And so I've never loved the idea, I've actually, well, not never loved, disliked intensely the idea of having to have what should be a completely product-led role put into a position where you need to have this terrible idea of standing in front of a developer who uses the product or who doesn't, and tell them things that you know maybe are showing the product in the best light, but not the most honest light, because you know that it's better to show it in the best light, because that way they'll join the community or do something that's measurable, right? So that's how I felt, I think, that's how I perceive DevRel as a concept has gone, which is why I don't tend to tell people that I'm associated with DevRel, because they make a link these days. And again, I'd love to hear your feedback on this.
Yeah.
These days, from that person does DevRel, that person does marketing are liars, that person's a liar. It's obviously a little more nuanced than that, but that is
I know.
What I tend to get.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with most of what you said, with a caveat, in the sense that like it is like that in general. And this is also why I lost some jobs, because, I was part of marketing and we had interviews, and, you have interviews. It's like, I don't know, if you're lucky, it's just 3 or 4 interviews. So you talk to maybe 3 or 4 people for, let's say, 4 hours. So like, you don't know each other, but I'm still really always transparent about like, this is my vision of DevRel. This is how I usually want or should be measured. And I don't want to be tied to amount of money. Those are my reasons. This is my approach. It may be totally different from what your team does, but you need to live with it. And if you don't, I'm not a right fit for you. And please, when I say that, I'm really privileged. I've been doing that for a long time. Right now, maybe life is different, like with everything that's happening, but like it was a little bit, and I'm not saying that like I'm so good. It's just because I've been doing that for a long time. I have a great network, work at great places that give me legitimacy, even if it means nothing in the end. But like it was easier for me to get a job, so I was able to filter jobs and be like, no, this is not a good fit for me. But some places, even if they were like, yes, okay, sounds good to me, they were still expecting me to be more like traditional marketing, or more like a salesperson, or more like another role, or have a different approach. After like a couple of months or a year, they were like, oh yeah, Fred is not changing his mind. Okay, bye. Like we don't need you. We need someone else. It's also why I lost some jobs, or I moved in like from other jobs once in a while, because I was like, no, this is not my vision. But I've also been lucky that I joined team that like, because I rarely was like, my perfect place, as you said, would be like either in product or engineering, because of the nature of the role. And there is a little less, expectation from you to align with the goal of like marketing teams or other teams that may not align with DevRel. But also usually they don't have budget. So when you're in marketing, at least there is the opportunity to have budget to do some stuff. But I've been lucky that like most of the jobs I had, like where I am right now, marketing is doing an amazing job, is doing an amazing marketing job, but they also really understand. My manager, she just left, so we'll see with the next one. But my manager, she was really like, hey, where are you for reasons? I know there's a different way for you to do things. I know there's different reasons. And I was really clear about like, yeah, I'm not a salesperson. I'm also not a marketing person. I'm part of marketing, but also I'm going to have a different approach. So, the first talk I did when I joined the company, I didn't use the template slides. I didn't use the marketing slides that were created. Some people were not super happy with that, but my boss was like, no, there's a reason. And I explained them why I do it that way. And people got in. And now, I mean, like marketing is updating your website. They're like, hey, Fred, like, what do you think about that? Does it resonate with developer? And I can go to the team and say like, no, you know what? That line is bullshit. I mean, like it may sound right in your head. The developer will look at it and it will say like, no, it's marketing bullshit. So we changed it, we updated. So super long answer to say, I agree with exactly what you said, but it will depend on in my experience. Again, I'm just talking about my own experience. In my experience, it depends on the team and the people that are on the team. And I've not always been lucky, but I would say most of the time, or where I am right now, so far so good. People understand that like have a different approach. They also understand that like, from my point of view, developer relation is you can have short wins in terms of like, you just talk about stuff and like, hey, that happens. I'm still always like, I don't do product pitches most of the time. I talk about other stuff that excite developers. But I'm still Fred from TinyMC. So maybe they're going to be like, oh, what the hell is TinyMC? And maybe they're going to be on a website. And maybe they're going to be curious. Maybe they're going to try it. Maybe they're going to become users and or customers. But it's also a medium to long-term type of job, because my primary role is to build relationship with developers. And maybe you don't need my product right now, but it'll be your next job or your next project. Maybe you're going to remember me that didn't try to sell you anything, that was really honest with you, that didn't try to like complete goals that don't make sense with my job. So anyway, I'm talking after that, just saying that, like, yeah, I've been lucky that in some jobs even if I was still part of marketing, I was still able to basically do what I think my role should be and not be tied to metrics that will, well, let's be honest, poison my approach or my relationship with developers. And to be successful, no matter the department you are. And after that, I'm going to read a question, unless you have something you want to add right away about what I've done, what I've said. But also to be successful, and even if you're not part of product or marketing, you need a really strong relationship with those teams. Because, the product, I need to understand where we're going, like what's the roadmap. I need to be able to the engineering team and product to bring them the feedback from the developers when I talk to our users or people that try our product. Because as you said, it's a two-way street. For me, it was always a two-way street. It's also why, and I want to talk a little bit about your title at some point, because first, I like the first part. And the second, no, did you say please don't?
I hate my title. I think it was given to me as a joke. So I actually rarely, I left it out of my intro kind of on purpose. And I had this, fully enough, I had I'd give a talk with a colleague of mine, like on Tuesday at a guest lecture. And I asked him, hey, listen, during the intros, I'm not going to say my job title. Is that okay? And I don't want you to do it either. And he said, no problem. And then the professor came up and then immediately introduced us by our titles and then questioned me about it. But no, I think it was, I think it was meant to humiliate me. And
okay.
Well,
I like it. If I want to be honest.
It's quite meaningless, and of all the things I don't like about being associated with sort of the what is like the newest version of DevRel, I feel an obscure job title with no understanding of what this might be is one of those things that, like, I want people to know what I do. And my job title doesn't do that at all.
Okay, I get it. I was just excited about like the Alchemist part of it, and also the technical evangelist, because like I've been doing DevRel for now maybe 15 years, and when I started the title, we were all evangelists. Like it was either technical evangelist, developer evangelist, and at some point, and I loved it because first, nobody known what I was doing, so it was a good icebreaker. And they were like, "Are you going to church every Sunday?" And it was like, "Yeah, that was a good icebreaker." But the whole industry slowly switched to developer advocates because they felt like, we're not just evangelizing stuff. We're like, it's a two-way street, as you said, and also because some people were offended, probably because of like the religious connotation of like evangelism. But like, I always like that title. So okay. We won't talk more about it.
I do like a developer advocate was something that is 2 words. It's got developer in it. People can kind of guess. He's pretty good. Process alchemist and technical evangelist is an insane thing to call yourself. And I understand that. And unfortunately, I need to explain to other people that I didn't choose it for myself, which is something people think. And I just need to get out there.
I thought it was the case because I'm like, there is no, in my mind, I was like, there's no way that HR was like, so we're going to hire, what do we need to help the business being successful? Oh yeah, process alchemist. I'm like, no, I don't think HR is going to do that. So I was like, Niall chooses title, but like, now I know it's, sorry. I was just like, I need to talk about this because I was excited. And Niall was like, nope, please shut up. But okay, let's move to another topic. With that said, last thing about title. I think no matter your title is probably unuseful for, like, I don't care about titles at all. I know there's a lot of people that care about them, but like my job right now, I lead a team. So they gave me like senior developer relations manager. If I want to be honest, if I look at the other people on the chart, and it's not because, I'm so better or not better, but like compared to other people that does about the same job as me at a company where I am, it should be director of developer relations. Do I care? Not at all. Some people care though. So I think it's also why it's a little bit important, because the day you want to find a new job, people will, like, if it doesn't work where I am right now and I want to find a new job, like, they won't think about me as like a director. They will think about me as a manager, even if my day-to-day role is like a mix of IC stuff, a mix of management, but also the big picture thinking about DevRel. Anyway, let's jump to actually, last thing before I move to the question, Daniel Andrews was like, I feel like all titles are made up these days, which is true. And this is also one thing that annoy me a little bit with developer relation. Not the fact that there's different titles, but like developer advocate title can mean something totally different from one company to the other.
It's meaningless these days. It's hilarious how meaningless it is. It's the only reason I had to get rid of that thing. Developer advocate no longer represented what I did, because it was such a broad and misunderstood title that better to have complete ambiguity than people making assumptions about what I can or what I am or am capable of. And so that if I had to choose, I'd probably keep my title over going back, just based on the power of ambiguity can at least give you that. At least people have to ask. So that's something, but I totally agree with Danielle there.
Yeah, and I just forgot one question. You wanted to have my opinion or vibe or experience about it. So far, I didn't see people reacting negatively when I say I'm a developer advocate. The thing that changed over the years is that people now have an idea what I do, where in the past I was like, okay, let me explain to you what I'm doing. Because, when I started, it was mostly big companies. Like, only people who had like technical evangelists was like Microsoft, Apple, Google. My first job was at Microsoft. And after that, like a couple of years after, like a startup that had like 15 people, not even like a full-fledged engineering team to build the product they wanted. They were like, hey, now our product is mature enough. We want someone to talk about it and I don't know, own the docs and do videos and stuff like that. And we're hiring developer advocates. So now more people know about it. With that said, though, obviously, like, some people may see a negative connotation about it. The things that I've always done in my life is that, I always feel like I looks like nothing compared to other people. I'm always like my black T-shirt and my beard, and I look like a hobo. But like once I start to do my shit, people are like, oh yeah, I think this guy know a little bit what he's doing, and the title like is less important, more than like, oh, I like your approach. I'm like, oh, you're not trying to sell me this. I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense for you. I'm like, oh, what do you think about that competitor? They're doing an amazing job. Like, if you need them to do this, go with them. If you need something else, go with us. And this is my approach. So anyway, talk way too much, but that's also why I'm being paid. So there's a question from Neely Lee. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say there's a question from someone.
Neely Lee. Yeah.
You're so much better. I don't know how, I struggle with names so much.
It's a classic German name that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Okay.
Neely Lee, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, and I apologize. I should stop trying to say the name of people because most of the time I screw them up, and I hate that.
Mine is hard, but it's only 4 letters or 5 letters, I think. I can never even remember myself. I think it's more than 3 anyway, but I have misspelled my own name multiple times.
Do you think DevRel... sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to read that question. So do you think DevRel is a sustainable career? How can someone go from being a front-end developer advocate to advocating for vector database without losing technical credibility? That's a good question, big question too, I think. So do you want to go first? You're the guest.
Well, the first thing I would say to that is, from my perspective, if I were to leave my current job, I would not become a developer advocate. I am primarily interested in the fundamentals of workflow automation and automation in general of stuff. That's kind of what I really care about. And I get the most joy in general out of like building stuff that can utilize that technology. So if I were to do this job, it would probably likely be, I would move away from DevRel to another company that does a similar type of thing, rather than move into a company that does DevRel, that I could do exactly what I do, but for a different technology. That's partly due to the fact that my career I was interested in this software first, and then DevRel kind of found me rather than the other way around, right? So therefore, I've never applied for a DevRel position. Rather, internally in my company, I was given that role because we were a very small company. when I started, and I was there when we didn't even know what DevRel was when we started, and then we got a manager that was able to actually put manners on things and kind of had done DevRel and stuff like that. So that was a nice transformation. But the point is that for this question, I would say that it's really hard to keep credibility if your job is to speak to a technical audience about a very technical subject, and you've come into a role without that technical knowledge, for example. I think it's really, really hard to sustain that, because I think if you can, it's easier to stay within your technical expertise and move within the DevRel community, and that maybe if you wanted to do DevRel primarily. But I think that actually it sort of showcases an issue with DevRel in general, where you can end up with career DevRel folks who end up being very good at DevRel, right? But they could then end up in the wrong technology that they don't fully get, don't really like. They get hired first. They have a great track record, for example, of doing DevRel stuff. They get hired into a technology that they just never really click with. And if you can't understand or speak honestly about the technology that you're supposed to advocate for, it's not like marketing where you're kind of supposed to just learn to lie. You need to talk to people on a fundamental level about how this works and be able to give honest reaction. That's why I often think about how difficult it would be to do my job if the stuff I did wasn't good and wasn't and in the past there's been like a few releases where the software was not in great shape, where it was way harder to do your job. But I still like the overall technology. I knew the potential. So you got to speak honestly about that. And that again is much easier if the department is not in marketing, where you're being told, here's how you're supposed to speak about the software. Doesn't matter that it can't do that yet, or that it does it very badly, but we're talking about the future. And I think that can be a trapping as well. But yeah, that's my opinion on, that's a very long answer to the question.
No, that's good. That's good. I'm going to share my opinion too, because there's things that are a little bit different from what you answered. Just to head on the last thing you said, like again, from my point of view, again, it's not like black or white in terms of like, oh, marketing is just like they ask you to do that or not. Like as an example, when I joined TinyMC, they were like, hey, when we talk about TinyMC, we use the term rich text editor because this is how it is defined in the industry. This is like, I don't know, there's also SEO implications, stuff like that. And I was like, fine. So I'm like, okay, it's my first job in that specific area of expertise. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. And after my first event, talking to developers, it was like, no developers know what is a rich text editor. Like everybody's like, so what is it exactly? And at some point it was like, oh, wait a minute, it's a WYSIWYG. And everybody's like, oh, okay, I know what it is. And now I can have a discussion with someone that already have like the light bulb flash over their head. I'm like, so I came back after the first event and I'm like, hey, you know what? Continue to use rich text editor wherever it makes sense, because we have like different target audiences. Mine, their developer, doesn't make sense. And people are like, oh, that's different from what we're used to. I'm like, doesn't matter. What I'm telling you is that rich text editor, they do not know what that is. When I say WYSIWYG, they're like, they understand. So I changed my language and people are like, okay, awesome. It makes sense for you. So again, it depends on the team of the people. So I just want to be sure there's no nuance there. And also, if there's my marketing colleagues watching, like I want you to understand that I understand there's difference. And I think we're doing a great job.
Yeah,
again, I'm not being a sucker. It's just...
I'm speaking very frivolously about marketing as a concept, not any individuals or any specific team.
And I understand too. I understand where it's coming from. If I want to be honest, and I'm usually always honest anyway, for the better or worse in my life, I'm always honest. And I had a really bad experience with marketing. I also had a really terrible experience with the sales team. We're basically screwing me over because they were doing things that doesn't make sense for my audience. And I'm also happy where I am right now when we have a booth at events. And I'm always with a salesperson. Why? Because I'm not going to be the one who's going to sell to the developer, but as a business, we still want to sell to the developer. But they're doing an amazing team. And I love their approach. They will never force someone to say like, hey, they're on commission. So like, obviously they need to do more sales. We want to have a proper salary. But like, I really love the sales team we have at TinyMC where they're like, okay, doesn't make sense for you, fine. keep us in mind. Maybe in the future, we're going to have a functionality that makes sense for you. Maybe in the future, you're going to have a use case, but they're not pressuring people, which was not an experience I had with most people. So there's also, it always depends on the people. It depends on the leadership team, because they're basically the one who set the tone. To go back to your question, 520, this is what I'm going to call you. Do you think DevRel is a sustainable career? I would say yes, from my point of view. This one is a really personal question. I don't think there is a right answer. In my case, it is my career for the last 15 years. So I started also as a software developer. I was coding full-time, talking to customers, doing architecture, but mainly coding. I loved it. I miss coding full-time. But also, like, when I put this on a scale between like DevRel job and like develop like software engineers, DevRel job is a little bit higher for me, because I'm also a big social extrovert that love to help people being successful, that love to be with people, that love to talk to people, that love to talk also way too much. So like for me, it's good. And this is what I'm doing for the last couple of years. What you said though, Niall, it's true. It's harder to move from one technology or one focus of technical area. I've been doing that for the last 15 years. Mainly in every job, my product was totally different. So, you know, like the last job, I was in cloud native. This one is like rich text editor, which is mostly JavaScript, React, Angular focused. The one before, when I was at Fitbit, that was like, you know, smart watches and you know, targeted to health. For me, I liked it because that's a great challenge. I never, maybe it happened, but like I've never perceived people that said like, hey, you're not credible because you're switching like different technology, your focus of technology, or type of product. Actually, usually it's more positive. I'm like, oh shit, you're about to do that. With that said though, I still consider myself technical, but if I want, like, I don't know why I always say if I want to be honest, because I'm always honest. And I feel like when I say if I want to be honest, it means that I was not honest before, but that's just an expression. Anyway, I'm not as technical as I used to. I'm still a developer. I can still code. I still understand code. I think I still have the credibility when I go on stage. And if it's not the case, please, people on my room, let me know. If you watch my video and you're like, that is bullshit, let me know. I want to know. But I'm not as technical as I was before. Why? Because it's been 15 years that I didn't put something serious in production. It's been 15 years that like I didn't work full-time on a product. And there's things that you can learn when you're all day long. It's about building software versus I learn technologies because I need to know about it, because I need to create a tutorial, because I need to record a video, because I need to give a talk at a conference. So I still consider myself technical. So far, nobody told me I'm not credible, but maybe they just don't want to say it to my face. But again, I'm not as technical that I was when I was like 10 years full-time software developer. I'm still technical. I'm still a developer, still call myself a developer. But again, the reality is that I'm not building software in production for the last couple of years. So yeah. Going to your second kind of like follow-up question, which I also liked. Shouldn't DevRel come from deep technical expertise? If that's the expectation, why not hire engineers or solution engineers with domain knowledge instead of generalist DevRel professionals? Please go ahead, Niall, if you have. I'm pretty sure you have some things to say about this.
I think it's hard to argue that if you were to, just like DevRel was built from scratch, from somewhere not too long ago, really. And that was from the people with domain experience that also had the ability to properly communicate that. I think those two factors should be true of most DevRel folks, right? You should have the domain experience and the ability to properly explain or even advocate for the thing you're talking about, if it's a fair thing to say. Therefore, I think in most cases, folks would, if they had a choice, say, we're looking for a DevRel. And I think I've seen this around a lot. There's a lot of roles out there that are DevRel skill set, let's say, they would have called DevRel maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that are not called DevRel anymore because they are, let's say, those domain knowledge roles are the primary concern. Like, we need somebody, maybe a consultant, I don't know, I'm not sure what kind of role, like a solution architect, somebody who understands stuff really, really well and can explain it really well, right? But they don't necessarily call that DevRel for whatever reason. And maybe it's because it's not in marketing. So I would say my answer to that question would be something like, yes, best case scenario, you find someone with domain knowledge who's able to either learn to or already able to express that domain knowledge in a way that is captivating and makes sense and makes people engaged. I think that's fair enough. I don't think people always have that option. I think is the other part of that. And I think that's maybe what happens. And also, again, this is from my experience, sometimes, maybe this doesn't happen anymore, but folks would be put into DevRel from other departments. They would just be like sort of plucked and like, we need somebody to do some stuff, so you're DevRel now.
Yeah, you did a lunch and learn one, so now you're DevRel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that could have been somebody with no domain experience but a very good presentation style, for example. And so there's loads of ways in which someone falls into this career. And I think if you were to write down what exactly are we trying to achieve, you would say, let's get a professional with domain knowledge who can explain it correctly and hire them, or find that person in the organization and convince them to do that role. I think the alternative is just the next best thing. I think it's if you can't do the first one, but I could be wrong.
No, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I'm still going to have comments because, it's like I just have to. It's physically impossible for me to not say something about stuff that I have opinions on, which is basically everything. But which doesn't mean that I have the only truth, though. I always say that. It doesn't mean that I have the truth. I agree. Like when I hired developer advocates on my team, the perfect candidate is going to be someone who has the skills of developer advocates and have the domain expertise, because you right away bring the what developer advocate's going to do, the skills that like many engineers don't have, because there's a lot of engineers that have like tremendous expertise and they're really like they know their shit like from in and out, but they're not able to communicate probably to external people. They don't want to be on a stage. They don't want to record videos. They don't want to write articles. They don't want to do those things because for them it's boring, and or they're afraid of it, and or they're just, let's be honest, not good at it. So trying to find, as you said, like the perfect fit where like, hey, you have that experience or expertise, or you're able to do the DevRel job, plus you have the domain expertise, best candidate. Most of the time, it's not the case. From my point of view, I think I wrote an article many years about that, but like from my point of view, whatever their jobs consider as soft skills, being able to communicate, being able to, write stuff, being able to connect and with people, those things that are always great. Like, I want an engineer, a software developer that can build code, but I also want that software developer like to be able to work with their colleagues and communicate with them and help them being successful. Usually it seems that like the soft skills or many other jobs, like it's a bonus to have that. From my point of view, developer relation, it's the hard skills. You need to have that, like it's the most important, because from my point of view, and like maybe I'm going to sound pretentious here, the easiest part of the job is to learn the technology. Because it's also, from my point of view, is that because, anyway, as a software developer, you cannot just say like, okay, I learned things at school and I'm done. No, if you've been in the industry for a long time, you always have to learn. So it should be a little bit part of like who you are as a professional, always trying to learn new stuff, always having to learn. Some technology may not be like, you may start to learn them and like, oh, I'm bored of shit with that.
I actually do agree with you on the learning part. It's actually not, it's actually because I think learning is not as relevant as caring, right? Because in developer advocacy is a little unlike being a developer on a product, because a developer on a product, you can probably do a pretty good job and not fundamentally care how it's used at the end of the day, right? I don't think that's such a hard thing to imagine. You got a ticket, you basically need to build a solution for that ticket. And in a lot of cases, especially in larger companies, you don't even have a concept of how that fits into the whole product itself, right? So as a developer, I think you can learn the stuff on a technical level and not care about the product whatsoever or fully understand it. Now, DevRel is different. I think it's incredibly hard to do the job if you don't at least care, or not necessarily care, but let's say have a good understanding of why the product is something people should be excited about in some way. Not that it's impossible, but it'd be much harder. So I think
I would say it's impossible. Or you like, I would go to like you were, for the lack of a better word with my English, I would say extreme with a lot of like things you said. And for once, I was like, this one should be extreme. Like from my point of view, like it's like, don't get me wrong, you probably can fake it for a couple of months, at some point you're not going to be successful. I'm not saying like you need to be a workaholic. I'm not saying that like you need to dream about your product when you go to bed. No. I like just my product. It's nice. It's a nice product, but it's also a job. Let's be honest. But I need to be excited about it. I need to understand the values, because if not, you are jumping in the bullshitting part of like what you should not do. And developers, engineers, they have like bullshit detector. This is why like, and I'm saying that with all respect for traditional marketing ourselves, but this is why most developers are allergic to traditional marketing or even new ways of doing marketing, or like the sales team, because they had bad experience with people that wanted to reach their goal no matter what it takes, no matter what they were saying, which is not true for most teams. It's not true for my team if you're listening, and it's right, and you know that I believe that. But I mean, like, this is the experience they have with most people. So DevRel, I think the big difference is like that. We should not have to do that. As we discussed since the beginning, we should not have to bullshit. We shouldn't and to be able to do that, you need to be excited. You need to believe it. Like I had, when I was looking for a job last time, there's a company, an amazing company, amazing people. They reach out to me and I'm like, hey, Fred, want to hire you? The offer would like the salary, everything was amazing. I was being able to build my DevRel team. I was not excited at all by the product. It's a great product. It solves issues that is good for people. From my point of view, I was not saying it's not a bad product. I was just like, there's no way for me to be excited about that. So I'm not going to be able to do my job well. And I did not even enter the process to like take the job, because it was like, no, it doesn't make sense for me. Again, I'm also coming from a really privileged place where I was able to do that and not just take the first job that I have. But from my point of view, like every job is a job. Like I'm not a workaholic. I work because I need a salary. At the end of the day, this is the only reason. I would probably still do some of the stuff that I do as DevRel on my free time if I was full of money, just because I was doing that before it was a job. When I was a software developer, this is how I started. I was speaking at events, I was writing blog posts, I was running meetups just because I love to do that. And at some point, someone was like, hey, we can pay you to do that. I'm like, okay, sounds like a good deal. So I would still probably do those things, but at the end of the day, it's a job. But I think that like specifically for developer relations, because we are with the people, we talk to the people, to developers, you cannot fake that enthusiasm about the product. You cannot fake that yet, like you really believe that it's like solving issues.
It's just that it's harder. Your job is so much harder if you have to do all of that, understand the product, talk about the product, and pretend to like the product. I don't know how anyone can do that. That sounds like that's a workload. And I think it's not. I can't imagine someone being able to accomplish that in a way that is effective. I think you can watch someone stand on stage and go through the motions for sure. They can technically do their job, but not in an effective way. It's so hard to do that. I guess it depends as well what your DevRel role is, because a lot of them don't necessarily require you to actually be in front of anybody. It's probably a lot easier to lie in text. I'm not sure, or to feign enthusiasm. Just ask ChatGPT or something can you make me sound enthusiastic about this product, and then see what happens.
It doesn't work when you're in front of people, especially with my face. My face cannot lie, so there's it's impossible. So I understand. And just to clarify, and after that we're gonna move to the Nemo part. We've been talking forever, and as much as I enjoyed that, I don't think people will still watch us after 3 hours of talking, which I'm pretty sure we could do. We're in a good direction. Also, about the new learning stuff. I say that's the easiest part. Maybe the word is like the simpler part more than easier, because it still takes time. It's still just
the role of DevRel to learn that everyone who joins a technical role needs to learn the thing. Therefore, it has the most the easiest path to follow, because almost every developer, let's say a technical marketing person, say a pre-sales person, stuff like that, they've all done that. So that's the easy part. I think you can definitely learn the technical aspects, especially if you have a technical background.
Yeah, and for me, it plays in my favor. Like the last job I had, I was in a startup. It was in a cloud native space, so a lot of Kubernetes stuff, and I did it just a little bit when I was at DigitalOcean, but nowhere near to be like I'm an expert in like it, and it was a little bit newer at the time. So when I started, I was really honest with people. I'm like, hey, it's not the first time I played with Kubernetes, but let's call it the first time. And I was like, I'm not an expert yet, but like I'm learning, which is what everybody who is starting to use Kubernetes now is doing. So we're going to be in the same journey. So it kind of like played in my favor. It took me way longer than any other technology to call myself at least greatly knowledgeable about Kubernetes, not even an expert. It took me like a couple months, a year before my like co-founders at the startup who were really expert were like, okay, Fred, you start to know your shit. But like it took me a lot of time. But during that time, I also went to the same journey and like people were starting to use that technology and gave me other positive aspect to be able to do my job. And again, I'm also always honest. I didn't go on the stage and I'm like, hey, so I've been doing Kubernetes for 10 years. No, like I just started now. So if I say something stupid, let me know. And people laugh and we go to like, and it's just working. So anyway, I'm blabbering now. Great questions. I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for discussing this controversial topic. Yeah, the last thing I'm going to say about that, and I know it's been 10 times that I say that. I know that like in the past, I don't know if it's true anymore. I think that the industry kind of like get back to it, but like at some point, if you wanted to be a developer advocate, you needed to be a developer first, an engineer first. Like there was no way for you to move to that role without it. You need to, because this is the beginning of the developer relation. It was like developers, engineers that were like, hey, I can talk to people, and they were doing it. And at some point, we've started to see a role where like some people had no experience as a software developer, and they were like hired because they know how to communicate. And so, like, feel free, people, to disagree with me or not. I think we have the same opinion here, but I don't think it ends up with like really great developer advocate people, because and I say that with all love, developers are really judgy. So, I can always bring back, even if it's 15 years ago now, I can still say like, hey, I've been a full-time software developer and engineer for 10 years. I know how it is to work with customers. I know what it is to put things in production. I mean, I know how it is to build with AI right now and have that pressure. But like, I know a lot of or I know it a little bit because I do it, but like not in the terms of like being a full-time software developer. And like I get that credibility because I've been through the nice thing of being a software developer, but also the shitty things of it. Once you don't have it, I think it's a little bit harder. But again, as you said, it depends on the role. There are roles that are a little less technical, still call themselves developer advocates because they talk to developers. But I'm still maybe a little, like, I still have the old thinking that's like, I prefer to have someone that have a little bit of experience, software development experience, because they're going to talk to developers. But anyway,
I would completely agree with that. I don't know how someone could do the job and not be able to have at least been a developer or be in the process of becoming a software developer. Either I think works. If the DevRel department is embedded with the product team, I think you have a chance of joining as a non-developer and then growing into the role because you're actively there and learning what developers are going through. But if you don't do either of those things, I think you just call yourself something else. You're not what that is. You're, which is fine. Just to be something else. So we can know. Yeah,
I agree with that.
So now who wants to watch me do a 20-minute demo in 7 minutes?
You can do it as long as you want. So yeah, it's God, I know it was around Camunda. So I'm, you know what? I'm a really bad host. I'm just going to let you introduce your company and the demo you're going to do, and the screen is yours.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. I'll be relatively quick. The thing I want to show is just kind of a fun thing that I built a little while ago that showcases what Camunda does. So Camunda is an orchestration software where you basically design what the state shows, right? Which is what the state progression looks like, and then that gets executed in a visual medium. It's really fun to build. The fundamentals of it are that it's designed in order to be a centralized point in a distributed system. And the idea is that Camunda sits on a layer which then orchestrates all the systems externally. So nothing is actually added to Camunda's layer. It is purely the owner of state and the owner of state progression. That's the short part of that. And this is a model I built because it's the new thing we're doing is that we are, as part of a process, in the past processes were almost always predictable, repeatable, deterministic. And because of AI, that's all ruined, because now things are supposed to be dynamic. Things are supposed to be a lot less rigid. But we can still build that really easily. So actually what you're seeing here is a process with 2 agents that are specifically in charge of not really executing any of the tasks, but simply choosing what should be executed. And there's some really, really great side effects of that architecture. And I'll showcase that with this little front end that I have. This is like a local thing that I'm running. The actual Camunda instance is running in the cloud. So just as a FYI, I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And this is an insurance claim process. We built this really not too long ago, and I really like the way it works and the technology it implements. So I want to talk through what makes it unique as I build it and why I quite liked building it. So my name, as we all know, is this. And I would like some work injury insurance. By far, the biggest problem for the company we were working for was this type of insurance, because I've had my bike stolen multiple times, and the insurance policy is they give you money and you're quiet, right? That's how it works. Work injury insurance, or like I think it's called workers' comp in the North America, is where, I'm not sure the French is. Fred, maybe you can tell me if there's a French equivalent of workers' comp.
Actually, I do not know.
That's okay.
What's the word?
So the idea is, of course, that I'm hurt, I can't work, and the insurance company needs to pay me until I get better. Okay, so I'm going to submit this. The process then is going to kick off, and it's got a few different agents. And the first agent is it's relatively standard. It's doing what you expect agents to do. Now, what we're looking at is as things light up, the agent is deciding what to execute. So you can see that it's already executed this task to get procedures and requirements. It's also executed the task to get my data, my customer data. It's queried that, and it's got my insurance policy. Now, these are already things that basically any AI agent can do. The next thing it's done is actually much harder, and that is that it's, funny enough, sent me an email. Sending an email isn't hard, but waiting for a reply is really hard. So if I take a look at, let's say, I know I'm trying to find my, yes, there it is. It did actually send me an email. That's good. So the email looks like this. And it said, "Dear Niall Deehan," that's my name, "you've submitted a thing. We need to assess it. I need some stuff from you. Can you let me know?" So luckily, I'm the kind of person who has a load of test data available. So a bunch of PDFs of my ID, details of my injury are all there. It's all very good. And all in the docs. Okay. Now, not only is at this point, the business logic is that it's waiting for an email to come in, which I hope it does. It's also waiting in case no response happens. And how it does that is by utilizing a subprocess. So this agent has triggered a deterministic flow that at the moment has sent an email and then began waiting. This is where the engine's in charge of, because all the LLM did was actually select the task to execute. And then what the engine does is actually perform those tasks. The first 3 were tasks that simply queried external services. But this one's way more complicated. This one actually does a bunch of stuff. And in particular, this one here waits for an email to be sent. Now, this thing here polls the inbox every like 30 seconds or something. So it'll be a little while before it actually finds the email. But in the meantime, I'm going to go back up here, and I'm just going to take a look at what other stuff it can do. So this is running on that subprocess. And the agent itself is only in charge of stuff in this scope, because the process is quite large. And so certain agents have their tasks and their abilities, and it's totally visualized of what actually gets executed. But also, it has humans involved. So we have here 2 different people. Okay. One that gets the final report, and one that gets, like, if they can't figure something out for some reason, gets classifications. Now, this thing is already finished. So what I expect, I hope, is I get a final report. And then I'll be able to see the data that I submitted combined with the information it's got already in a predefined report that this particular person needs. That's why it's taking a little long to trigger that task, because the LLM itself is generating that data, and now we see it's triggered this user task. So now a user is involved. So they can then take a look at what the agent has said to us. And this is all the fun stuff. So we have our report generated on this day. No, that's about right. And yeah, information about me, including my definitely real phone number. And apparently I live in Maple Grove now.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least it's not your real address.
Yeah, I hope not. I think it's got the city and the country wrong, so that's a good start. And then other bits and pieces about the insurance policy that it knows about and all sort of fun stuff. And then it goes down and here are all the checks it needs to make, that it knows it needs to make. And then it's able to say, okay, that's good. I'm going to approve that. That's great. Now, I could also not approve it. The thing about that makes this unique is kind of not that interesting right now. The only thing I showed you that's relatively unique is the idea here of being able to call a sub-process with the context of an agent. That's kind of unique. That's kind of fun. But this next agent is doing stuff that I really enjoyed building because this was a real problem they had to solve. This agent here, again, unlike most other insurance types, this is a very long-running agent. It runs for about 3 years, well, maximum 3 years until the policy runs out. And you would first think, well, that's too long to run an agent. That would bankrupt you. But the fact is that most of the time, the agent is actually not doing much but waiting. And I'll explain what I mean by that. First of all, it's asked me for some information. So let's head back to my lovely email address. And let's see, yes, I've got, oh, it's way more formal now. I'm no longer Niall, dear Mr. Deehan. So this agent is far more formal. Yeah. Definitely wants to approach me in a more direct way.
You look like you're legit. You have legit claims, so now we're going to be polite with you.
Exactly right. Yeah, this person looked at me and thought, "No, I'm not sure about this guy. Let's make sure he gets through the process first, and then we'll call him by Mr. Deehan." So it's asked me for how I'm getting on, this sort of stuff. Now, this is important because the course of now what I'll do is I'll quickly reply. Luckily, I happen to keep at all times free text of exactly how I'm getting on at any time. Just happen to keep that. So my typical day is blah, blah, blah. And I've put kind of all the stuff they're asking for, which they've detailed very nicely. I have just dumped into a big paragraph and I'm sending that. Okay. So we don't find that unusual. This is a normal thing to happen because, of course, this is what the client told us that the user mainly, their main job, this is this person up here, their main job is to find out how the patient is doing or how the client is doing right now as a baseline to determine how they get better. And that means that they need to try and get this big block of text thing into a more usable format to be able to have a consequential action for the next response. And we can see that if we take a look at this thing here, it should trigger, I hope. But it's an LLM, so we don't really know. Yeah. So this has come back. And it can ask for clarification, maybe. Okay, it is going to show the report. And we can see that it turned that text into something more usable, right? It's parsed it together. So if this is not unusual, this is just a good thing an LLM does. And some positive and negatives, great stuff. And I'm going to say, that's great. And now we're going to do something that most LLMs would have an incredibly hard time doing. Let's wait for 3 months and ask him again. Okay. So I've just told it how long to wait. It could be any amount of time. Depending on the case, it could be, okay, let's see in a week after their hospital visit. But the thing we were told here that the LLM needs to dynamically wait for an amount of time. And the way we do that is we use a BPMN construction here that allows it to put in a wait time. And then the engine then waits for that amount of time. So right now we are waiting for 3 months. Okay. And that's pretty good. That means that in 3 months, the agent will wake up. It will then communicate to the client and say, hey, last time you said this and that, how are you feeling now? And then be able to report back on the progress of that person. It's pretty good, right? But
so you're gonna come back on the show in 3 months, and we're gonna see it.
Oh, don't worry, Niall is not trustworthy, so we don't need to go back in 3 months because in this case, Niall is going to do something that's going to trigger this second thing here. Because one of the requirements we had, which I find really interesting, is while the agent is waiting to get back to someone, there is another department in this company, the fraud squad, and they are checking up on folks. And as I said, Niall is not trustworthy. So We have a specific claim ID, which is here, which is a unique identifier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say he wasn't giving a guest lecture. Niall was seen on Fred's DevRel show. Okay, this is not good for Niall. This shows that Niall is actually up and about. So I'm going to send this message. And you can imagine, like, I'm sending this from my local system. So you can imagine that the fraud squad have their own system completely. Yeah. And this is just a button they click on their system to say, give the LLM additional context, right? You just send it as long as you have the application ID so you can find the right waiting instance. And what happens is that wakes the agent up. And then the agent is like, oh, I've woken up from my slumber and I've got some new context to deal with. So then the agent needs to say, okay, what do I do with that context? And they already, because it's woken up now, it's given the what's happened so far. So it already knows, it's asked Niall about stuff. And let's see if I get the Mr. Deehan response this time around. Or if I get all three of my names, which is how angry people usually refer to me. But no, this is Dear Mr. Deehan, I hope this finds you well. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, recently appeared on Fred's DevRel show before scheduling quarterly. Do you got some clarification? Oh no, the nature of my appearance. Okay, but don't worry. That was just my twin brother. He's like me, but smaller. Okay. Anyway, so then we can continue the fun. So that agent then goes ahead and tries to solve that problem. The nice thing is that what we have here is a lot of agent technology solving a relatively hard problem that, first of all, it involves humans in a way that makes their job much easier, which is really, really good. Yeah. But secondly, it's totally visual and auditable. This is something that needs to be auditable. And you can see exactly what runs. We have control of the state. We have all the variables. And makes it very, very easy to implement AI in places where they're very, very heavily regulated. And
the fact that you put humans in the loop too, which is something that is missing in many systems that should probably be there, especially in something as regulated as that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in this first section here, one thing you'll notice is the agent actually can't complete it unless it talks to a user, and a user decides to reject or continue. So the agent has actually no decision making on whether someone should be accepted or not. The agent actually needs a human to do that.
Love that.
Yeah, and I think that's not bad. I think I managed to complete that in the allotted time there, Fred. So
you had as I said, you had as much time as you wanted. I know we went over the usual like 1 hour that I book in people's calendar, and I don't want to take too much of like your evening time, but do you have time just for one last comment that a user had that may require us to comment on it? Do you have still a couple of minutes? Yeah? Okay, let's do that. Daniel, you also had great input. Daniel said, every company onboards new folks and teaches their product, but a DevRel job, those teams are so lean, they don't have the time to teach you those skills. So
that's I totally
anything you want to
agree.
add?
Yeah. In teams that I've been on, we've been definitely in like the most functioning DevRel teams that I've been part of. They are very good at that. They have the people and able to bring people along best they can, right? But this comment is absolutely right. And it also showcases a big risk that DevRel has in a marketing department in particular, in my opinion, which is the value of the team as it is for doing things like this, like helping onboard new members of the team, is never considered when, for instance, cost cutting needs to be taken into account. That's when they look at DevRel and think, well, why is it so big? It's because everyone is doing a lot of different stuff here. Yeah. There aren't individual roles here that are cut out. Even a good-sized DevRel team will have people that are utilizing loads of different aspects of what they're good at. And in an ideal scenario, that involves enabling other members of your team because, as Danielle quite rightly says, you don't usually have a lot of support from other parts of the department. If you're in the marketing department, that usually means you don't have access to a lot of technical people to help you understand the product. And you rely then on the DevRel department to like help enable that. And that can work. That can be really, really good. But I think that what ends up happening is people underestimate the value of those bigger DevRel teams because they don't fully see definitely in marketing departments. I think if you go into product, again, you have that feedback loop thing that I've seen technical managers value heavily. So you have that additional thing, but that doesn't exist in the marketing department. You're not talking to the devs every day, right? You're not giving that feedback. You're giving the feedback to marketing. And they're like, well, we can get that feedback ourselves, maybe some other way if we get rid of DevRel. So yeah, I think this is a great comment and a really, really good assessment.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. The last thing I would add is that from my point of view, the little time I had people that could help me ramp up to the product and or the company and or technology, the company is good because it's like, I want people to tell me what's the good, how things work, what's the processes, the red tape, and those kind of things that helps me to get started faster. Usually for the product or the technology, I like to not having help, and it's not because I'm so good. It's just because I want to be like any new users. So what I usually do is like any new users, I'm going to use the docs and I'm going to use the tutorials out there. I'm going to use the video out there, so I can know from like the first 2-3 weeks, maybe like, hey, what I think is missing. If I have suggestions about the docs as a new user, I can go to the joy or the pain of new users. And if I want to be honest, it takes me more time to get into it versus like someone else, another DevRel in the team who knows the technology real well, or someone in engineer is going to spend a couple of hours with me to teach me, to show me how it's working, to help me. Obviously, if I get stuck for an amount of time, I just ask help. I'm not stupid either. I know I look like, but I'm not. But at the end of the day, by being that kind of like, I believe that DevRel should be customer zero. Like there's a new release, we should be the first one to try it, test it, to learn about it, to know about it. Because we need to usually create content about it, but also we talk to people. But by doing that in a new job, it really gave me the lay of the land about like what is missing for like a user experience, a developer experience when to join the company. So again, it takes me more time to go to that direction, but I like to do that, which not everybody who hire me likes me to do that, but that's my process that after many years, I helped me really be successful in what I do. But yep. On that note, I think it brings us to the end of the show. So any last word, last sentence, something intelligent or not to say?
Well, I can go with not intelligent. That's my default. And thanks a million. Actually, no, there was a great discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was nice to get your perspective on topics that, that I think about a lot, but I'm always interested in bouncing these off folks because, it's lonely where I am in terms of the DevRel stuff. I don't have a lot of DevRel folk around me, so it's good to get the opportunity to bounce those off. So thanks for taking on these discussions. They're really good.
My pleasure. Thanks to you for being on the show. I know you're part of like the couple quote unquote first people that reach out, or I reach out to you to be a guest, and it took forever and everything was delayed and like it was complicated. Finally, we're about to go online. I think you're one of the last person. Now that the other people are aware that like it may take time and like that. I'm not doing that every other weeks now, and I'm not scheduling also a year in advance, which is what I was doing when I was not traveling, because like it's fine, like there's very little thing that's going to disrupt that. Now it's not the reality. So anyway, thanks again for being on the show. That was a real pleasure to have you on the show. It's also great that we have it's great that we have some like common opinion, but also like when we like there's some disagreement, but we're like fine with it because that's life. We don't have to agree about everything, and that makes a better show when like the answer is not always like, hey, I agree with everything you say. So thanks for doing that. I really appreciate that when it's done in a respectful way, and it was done. So thanks everybody. Thanks everybody who joined us live. Thanks to everybody who joined. Who's going to watch I don't know how to talk anymore. How to people who will watch the recording. Thanks to you. And I should probably write those things down because every end of the show, I do not know when is my next episode. It used to be every 2 weeks. And now the next one's going to be in 2 weeks. So yeah, my next show is going to be in 2 weeks. I have another amazing guest. I'm going to announce that probably beginning of next week. You should join us. It's going to be amazing. And on that note, I wish you a great evening, morning, afternoon, night, if you're watching us at night. And see you in 2 weeks for the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Cheerio. Bye.